Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Baird, and you're listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. In each episode, members of ATA's Professional Development Committee will interview translation and interpreting specialists. They'll ask about what the work entails, what skills are needed, the pros and cons, and so much more. The goal is to showcase the variety of career paths in translation and interpreting and help working professionals and students understand what's out there, how they can get started, and what they need to succeed. Specialization is arguably the best way to strengthen your translation and interpreting business and stand out from the crowd. We're hoping to bring you one episode a month, and we hope you'll join us on this informative journey. This podcast is brought to you by the American Translators Association. If you'd like to know more about ATA, we'll have some information at the end of the show. All right, now over to the PD Committee and this edition of Inside Specialization.
Hi, and welcome to Inside Specialization, a feature of the ATA podcast on specialization and diversification. My name is Daniel Sebesta, and I'm the incoming administrator of ATA's Language Technology Division. I'm joined today by co-host Bridget Hylak, the outgoing administrator of ATA's Language Technology Division, and we're thrilled to bring a very special guest to our listeners, namely Konstantin Dranch, founder of Custom.MT. Konstantin has been an industry researcher for 10 plus years. He worked with NIMDZ, worked with different angles of the industry, covering different countries and different aspects of linguistic work. And 3 years ago, he founded his first company, Custom Machine Translation, that deals with MT models, LLMs, large language models, and tries to bring about the next big thing in language services. Bridget?
So hello, Konstantin, and hello, Daniel. We're so grateful to have you both here today. We appreciate this international gathering that we're having, thanks to the technology that we're here to talk about. And Konstantin, I wanted to just first say I was first attracted to you through LinkedIn because of your very elaborate, descriptive, and very, very interesting posts about industry conferences, about what is going on, the latest and the greatest. I think you are somewhat of a language industry influencer, if I may use that term. And so I'm sure our audience is really interested about your background. So you are undoubtedly a multilingual authority now on machine translation and on our industry at large. And you started out as a linguist, and we know a little bit of that. So can you tell us a little bit about your story, your history, and where that intersection between language and technology comes from in your story, in your case?
Of course. Hi, Daniel. Hi, Bridget. Thanks for having me. Well, the story is I studied to be a linguist, and during the studies, I had a few odd jobs as a freelancer. I remember getting my first check in paper from the UK, and there was no bank in my neighborhood that could cash it. So I just put it on the glass, and it's somewhere back in my mom's house, thousands of kilometers away, in the sentimental box.
Oh, it wasn't a big check, I guess.
It was sizable for a student. But what happened is during my studies, I got a first job as a business journalist, and it felt like completely rediscovering the world. I started learning about how people do things, build organizations, make money, and the world was completely different from what I envisioned before. And for 5 years, I was completely immersed in journalism. Later on, one of my university friends pulled me to help organize an industry conference. My part was to make a river cruise on a boat. And only 10 people got food poisoning from the pizza at the time, but it was a really fun occasion. So I got drawn through his efforts into this fantastic, very clean and intelligent and diverse industry of language services and localization. and immediately applied what I knew from journalism to this industry. And not too many people write about translation, interpreting, subtitling, and dubbing. It's not that glamorous. And so by being one of the people who knows how to write, how to collect information, ask the right questions, and being in a space which would love to see more exposure, I could kind of connect two and two and eventually become a researcher known in a few countries.
I think you connected two and two very well. Let me start with an oversimplified high-level question before we turn to a more nuanced discussion. Do you think AI, artificial intelligence, will replace linguists sometime soon? I know many of our members got a little nervous when ChatGPT came out about a year ago, and some people are still struggling with even basic CAT tools, and not to mention incorporating machine translation into their workflow. So how worried should linguists be right now?
Well, on one hand, AI has long replaced linguists, right? If you look at the amount of work all the linguists do in a day, and compare that to the amount of translations all the models or robots do in one day, do you know what is the ratio, Daniel?
I don't want to be too far off, but I can imagine there's a sizable difference.
Yeah, the 3,000 more times at least.
Yeah.
It was an estimation 3 or 4 years ago, and probably it's even bigger today. So in one day, all the robots in the world do 10 years or, I don't know, 20 years of linguist work.
Wow.
So the human linguists are not even 1%. However, they're still making money in livelihoods, and the salaries are increasing slightly in some geographies, and the market keeps growing. The content of this market, the services which are being provided, of course, are evolving. It used to be translation on typewriters, then translation in Word, then translation in CAT tools. Now it's post-editing in CAT tools with machine translation involved. Next, there's going to be a robot checking the human if the translation is good, but the work is still there. It's evolving, and a good professional needs to evolve what they do, but the linguist, the need for the linguist to review, to control, to make sure that the quality is good, that the risks are managed, it's still there.
I think it was also interesting what you said about your journalism background. That really spoke to me. I have a journalism background myself, a degree, and it's been actually something we've always looked for in linguists are that combination between the language skills of the journalism, because you clearly, get the fact that translating is one thing and actually making a beautiful copy is another. Perhaps that is another reason why I love your posts, because they're just rich and bright and easy to read and entertaining. There's quite a lot of beauty, journalistic beauty in them. But moving on from what you just said there, do you think, as a person with a company called Custom.MT, that MT maybe is just not going to be cool enough anymore, or not good enough? Setting aside all the hype, we are now clearly we have a lot of added value with Gen AI and LLMs. Is there anything other than a novel? Are they anything other than a novel way of doing MT, or do you think there's something new coming? Can you speak to that?
Yes. So it's not easy sometimes for me to explain what I do to my mother or my grandmother, even to people who are currently engaged in some other industry. Customizing the machine translation, what is that? It's not a lot. And we used to do a lot of machine translation customization. Now it's going down. Now it's more prompt engineering, combining the different LLMs. Also, the work is evolving. And so to explain what we're doing is not always easy. I try to kind of refer to the projects that we've been doing. For example, we worked with World Meteorological Organization in Geneva, and they have increased needs to have everything translated. People want to know about climate change, and the team is small, so the linguists, they don't have the capacity to translate in all the languages and all the documents that they need. So they worked, they found out how machine translation can help them, integrated it, put the terminology to use, and now they communicate all the documents which were left untranslated before. Now it's translated with the machine. Did they lose their jobs? By all means, no. But now they can talk to more countries and more peoples around the world in their language.
That's an interesting example, actually. Instead of downsizing a team, they're upsizing the tech, which is
Absolutely, yeah. Nobody wants to fire people. They just want to do more.
Right. Very interesting, because I don't think I've ever heard that particular. It's clearly, makes a lot of sense, but I've never really heard that focus, which is a great one and actually pretty encouraging.
So, Konstantin, are we still aiming for human parity in machine translation, or has that concept as a whole become less relevant with Gen AI?
Right. Of course, the ultimate goal of the machine is to provide a perfect machine translation, which can even be personalized for the listener or the reader. Right. A child wants to read in a language they understand, an adult in a different language, somebody more formal, somebody informal, perhaps. They even have preferences on this level. And knowing how much content is out there, everybody wants to have a button which does that. So the ultimate goal of machine translation is, of course, to be perfect, to be able to translate everything in the world. So there is no language barrier. The language barrier cannot be broken completely in a manual way. It has to be the Star Trek universal translator, which automatically translates any language, spoken, written, and so on. However, if we come to the situation that we have right now, which is that the hype of ChatGPT is dying down and the solutions are beginning to emerge, people had a year to play with it. They now know what it can do and what it cannot do. And it's now the first kind of tentative steps in AI to make it practical, not just a toy, to experiment and to try it out and benchmark. And I could speak a little bit about the latest discoveries, what it can do and cannot do, but short story, there's no big impact yet on the finance of what we do. People believe in machines more because they've seen what ChatGPT can do, and they're more ready to take the risks with machine translation. But the process has not changed in a big way, not yet.
I think it's interesting what you said about personalization and hyper-personalization. Actually made me think of a particular organization that we work with, which is a nationwide, it's an outreach education on a certain topic, illness, actually. It's actually a little-known illness. And they have issues with the fact that they produced a high-level translation, and yet many people who get this particular illness are not very educated, and they're not getting the message. And so it made me think of one of the beautiful implementations of Gen AI is taking a text that is a high level and quickly turning it around into, say, a 6th grade level. It just made me realize, like, wow, that would be an interesting application for this client. So I'm going to hang up and go back on Monday and talk to them about this. But nonetheless, hyper-personalization is an important promise of Gen AI. So what do you see as the opportunities for linguists and or companies to fine-tune MT for domains, for their customers, for readers? And we're interested in this because, again, these are our colleagues. We're all in this industry. We want to see how we can stay relevant.
Well, there is always the work of making machine translation better, right? So if you get into this work stream, our company actually very often works with linguists to advise and to teach the machine. One of our customers is a gaming company which connects children around the world playing video games. And when they play, they talk to each other. But the language of kids playing video games is absolutely not the language of adults. The thing is, normal people, when they look at it, they often cannot make a head or tails of what's
Right.
going on, what are they speaking about.
Right.
And so, for instance, we had this project where we had a group of people trying to understand what's the chat means and to train the machine to also do the good rendition of the slang of young people in different languages. This could be an example of how linguists can work on hyper personalization. Maybe not hyper, because that's still some time away. I heard the concept first in 2017 from Chris Wendt at the Taos conference, and still not there, right? It's machine translation is still not hyper personalized, but at least to cover more domains, there is a body of work. It's not as gigantic or significant as the body of work to make, I don't know, legal statements, clinical trials, even website translations. But there is an opportunity in this type of specialization when you learn how to teach the machine to work better. You're a consultant to a machine, and your job is to work yourself out of a job. That's a little bit of what we do.
Can I just ask one quick follow-up too, just for our audience to understand? So we're speaking about hyper-personalization. Can you explain what the differences are between that and localization? I mean, in terms of localization outside of the technical implementation of one item into many languages, or one app into many languages, what would you say is the difference between those two, if you can?
Right. So localization is a term invented, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago to make translation more cool. And it involves the technical work and translation, right? It's a combination of making the code work and making the cultural reality work, right? Hyper personalization is when you adjust the translation on the fly for the reader, and it's not there yet, right? It's it never materialized.
Thank you.
Great. So when ChatGPT came out about a year ago, there was a lot of talk about multilingual text generation or multilingual copy generation. Texts being created from one prompt into several languages without any one of them being the source text and any one of them being the translation. What, in your opinion, does this mean for language professionals? Is any segment of translation work likely to be displaced by multilingual text generation? Will translators possibly become editors of target language texts that are not really target language corresponding to any source language text and are not really a translation?
Well, I'm a little bit skeptical on this one. Everyone likes to generate text with the machine, right? You probably had tried yourself to make ChatGPT write you a poem about being a specialist translator, or maybe a New Year's congratulatory note for Christmas, or for an anniversary. But who likes reading machine-generated text? Can you say that you enjoy reading a congratulatory note that you know has been generated by the machine, and the person hasn't put a lot of personal time, effort, tears and grinding of the teeth into your message?
Right.
Maybe not really. So the generation of the text is typically about the text which is not very important. It could be a product description for a t-shirt, or it could be taken some old marketing content, repackaging it in several ways, and publishing it so that you have more traffic. It's definitely not going to be unrevised, unsupervised generation of machine content on anything important, like would you trust ChatGPT to make you a contract with your customer? Would you trust ChatGPT to make I don't know, a sales email which you don't revise? Probably not, right? You want to know what you're talking about with the customer, what you're promising, how you sound. So I don't see this becoming a immediate replacement for translators yet, and still many companies are going into writing. If you look at translation, it's become heavily technologies. How do I say? It's become like a factory over the years. It's very affected by technology. If you look at writing, most of the writing still happens in Microsoft Word. Sometimes you have autosuggest, right? So there's more to it to automate, to redesign, to modernize on one hand, and then on the other hand, writing is a much bigger activity for humans than translation. You have one translator maybe out of 1,000 people, but everybody writes. Doctors write, lawyers write, technical manual creators write, managers write, everybody writes, right? So there's a bigger market by a factor of 100 maybe, and it's still not as advanced in its technology as translation. So people will go there and try to disrupt it with their new technology, and there's going to be a battle of these technologies and approaches in the next few months, years, and we'll see who wins. And the translators can be an active part in this because just by the grace of working with content and knowing how post-editing works, they can probably apply their skills to redefining writing in the next 5 years.
I find that interesting too, because I have been thinking a lot about what we are well suited to do as linguists with language backgrounds, journalism backgrounds, word backgrounds. You know, what do these qualifications as linguists, how do they well position us for the new frontier? And there are a lot of skills that we have that are really uniquely suited to some of these up and coming careers. So I'm really glad you mentioned that. And you know, text generation in itself is the main thing that right now people think about when they think about Gen AI. But what about audio and video? If you could speak to that, Konstantin, what impact, you know, first of all, what about audio and video with Gen AI? And then in that context, if we could, you know, bridge this into the subject of interpreters, if you might want to suggest a few ideas of what you think, what impact interpreters might expect.
Let's start with audio and video and subtitling and dubbing.
Okay.
Right. I just come from a conference of TV people called the International Broadcasting Convention. It's the biggest with, I've never seen so many people in one place ever in an industry conference. I think 50,000 people, something like that in Amsterdam.
Wow.
And of course, everybody's talking about generative AI. How is it affecting the media? And they had the same fears. Are we going to be replaced by machines? But no, the machine has been made in a creative assistant. So you need to write a script. You can generate a script and then review it. It could be a music script. It could be a video script, right? If you're making a podcast episode and you need to come up with 10 questions to a person who works in language models, you can ask ChatGPT and they generate.
That's exactly how I started.
I knew it. Anyway, so nothing happened, right? These large language models, they are going to have an impact on the product, on the processes, and the promotions. The promotional impact is out there. Everybody who says we have AI, we have generative AI, they attract the attention. There were crowds at these presentations on generative AI. Processes are going to take 2 or 3 years, and they will become marginally improved, right? So 10% faster, 20% cheaper, something like that. It's not completely replacing the process. It's just making it more efficient, which is always the case with processes, right? If you look at any process, even, I don't know, producing food, making shoes, making cars, writing, medical diagnosis, it has always been improved, right? It's an ongoing thing.
Right.
And so nothing big happened, but people are looking at this. They are collecting use cases, implementing. I've seen products with generative AI, for example, rewriting subtitles, connecting subtitles, giving them context. So small improvements, right? Not super duper exciting, but they lead to efficiencies in the existing process. And now if we jump from subtitling and dubbing people who are of course excited, they're going to get some improvements, but nothing right now, nothing which changes how they're paid, how fast they can deliver, not on a big scale, but eventually one of these days. Now we go to the interpreters. In the interpreting world, there's been an ongoing revolution with machine interpreting over the last couple of years. It's in no way connected to large language models and generative AI. So I haven't seen big implications for interpreting from Gen AI, right? There's already been a few inventions. The assistants, you hear what's being said, and it's already coming up on your screen with maybe with the original speech recognition based transcript and the translation potentially from the machine. Maybe some numbers are extracted and given to the interpreter. Right, so the interpreter will have some assistance. Maybe this assistance will become better and more accurate and will provide maybe instant, I don't know, unit conversions, something like that. How easy it is to convert 100 degrees Fahrenheit into Celsius as you are interpreting live, not consecutively, but simultaneously. Not easy, right? But what if the machine could give you immediately the calculation? That would help.
Right.
Second is this fully automated, there's no human in the loop machine interpreting. How is it being used? It's becoming a thing with the United Nations, with the different parliaments around the world, but not for the main languages, not for the high value, high risk, right? Maybe there is a person in the room with a small language, which is spoken only by a small number of people, and it's not easy to find an interpreter for them. It's a difficult use case. So voila, we press the button and the machine interpreter takes the stage for that person individually. So the jobs are not going away, but some use cases will be covered, especially where there is no risk. And the interpreters on the whole will get some assistance as they're doing their work from the machine. Oof, and that was a long speech.
That was, and just to follow really quickly, so you think at least at this point, the large language models aren't directly impacting the interpreting industry. Tech is for sure, but the LLMs aren't really quite having that impact there yet, but that's probably something to come. Is that correct? Is that what I understood?
Yes, I would say that assistance to these knowledge-based jobs, whether it's subtitling or interpreting, some kind of rough rendition, maybe advice on specific entities or numbers. This is definitely going to explode. In a big way, replacement, not yet. Not this year, not the next year, not the year after.
Those are some reassuring words for our interpreter colleagues. So now...
But eventually, one day.
Yeah.
Please, let's keep that till next year.
We can't predict the far, far future, of course. So, Konstantin, what skills do you think linguists need to work on today? Not far, far ahead in the future, but today. In what direction should linguists, translators, and interpreters look to remain relevant? What training is also available, and perhaps also what training is needed but not available?
Things are not changing that much, Daniel. In the past couple of years, we've seen that nobody is safe in today's world. We are standing on so little continuity and constancy in today, in the present. So it's very, very difficult to say this is a definite trend and it's going to continue in the future for the next 10 years.
Right.
People on the buy side, the localization specialists have been losing jobs left and right to layoffs, right? There's been layoffs of technical people, of developers, of marketers. Even sometimes some localization teams have been slashed off. So nobody has a complete kind of feeling that their future is free of problems.
Very true.
That you can get a job and you stay in a job, never changing, never adapting for the next 50 years. That thing, that kind of dream from the 50s, from the 60s of the previous century, I think it's gone. So what are we left with, right? What is our generation of people working now? What do we get? And we get basically two paths, right? One path is to work with people, and the other path is to work with systems. So if you want to avoid working with people, and you want to be a technical specialist, you know what to do. You study for working with models, understand the output. You get more technical, and always chase the technology which is going to be the next. And if you want to work with people, then you need to be able to find customers for the next thing, right? Maybe today you're doing translation, tomorrow you'll be asked to revise and fact check the output from LLMs. Fact checking is an emergent field, for example. You don't do 250 words for fact checking per hour. You do maybe 1,000 to 2,000 or even more. Who knows? Because you're just scanning for bad mistakes. Anyway, the services will change, but if you have the skills to find customers, you'll always be needed. If you understand the needs, how to ask for them, how to position yourself, how to listen to people, not talk as much as I do today. That would probably ensure your job security in the next years to come.
That's my problem, I think. I actually want to ask a follow-up on the flip side of that same question. I see a lot, it's actually personally concerning to me. I see a lot of linguist colleagues of ours training really, really hard, in areas like site translation, MTPE, note-taking and such. And a couple of those are interpreting skills. So I guess we can go back to your answer and still say some of those probably are useful. But I honestly worry about my colleagues, and I wonder how much effort is being put in the right direction. So do you know what type of trainings you think might be obsolete in a year, or what are some skills of the past that maybe we might consider? I don't want to put anything down or anybody's courses down at all, but maybe a better idea to transition out of training in some of these areas because they're not really going to have a long shelf life.
Bridget, do you know anyone today who would be translating without capitals at scale?
I meet them frequently.
You meet them frequently, right?
Not a huge scale, though, I have to say.
I don't know. What about the US legal system? How much automation do you see there?
Not enough at all. Correct.
Not enough. Sometimes people are just translating in Microsoft Word.
You're
and
right.
They're being paid good money for that, and they don't need anything else. If you can find those pockets, then you're safe.
Right.
I think it's the ability to find and detect this type of opportunity, which is more important for the insured livelihood, to be able to find them, to protect your business. It's more important than training for some technical skill, which is coming up. Technical skills change, but the ability to connect with people, establish working relationships, it's as old as the first human on Earth.
I think those are some great closing words. Find your pocket that's safe from the adverse impact of technology that you might be concerned about, and certainly pointing out how many different skills go into running a translation or localization or interpreting business, right? It's not just the language skills, but working with people and keeping up with various trends on your customer's side and in technology.
Even in those pockets, clients are looking to figure out more efficient ways of doing things. So you might find a pocket, but I think staying ahead of the game when it comes to how you can add value on a regular basis in the future is very important.
And I also think this really underscores how diverse an industry we are, and how there is room for everyone everywhere on the tech spectrum and other other spectrums. Konstantin, thank you so very much. This was very informative. Bridget, thank you so much for asking great questions to Konstantin. And we're looking forward to seeing more of you at localization events.
Thank you very much, Daniel, Bridget, and good luck to everyone who's listening to the podcast. May ChatGPT be with you.
You've been listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. Big thanks to everyone involved in the production of this episode. ATA's PD committee developed and coordinated the interview. Mixing and editing was done by Derek Platz. ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support. Now, if you learned anything new in today's podcast, I bet there's somebody out there who would like to know it too. Don't be stingy. Tell them about us. I've gotten to know so many great podcasts that way. I promise they'll thank you for it. And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. I can honestly say that ATA launched my freelance career, and I've never looked back. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make a difference. And ATA isn't just for translators or interpreters. Individuals, companies, and organizations can become members. We have teachers, professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, technology developers, as well as language companies, universities, hospitals, and government agencies. Go to ATA's website, atanet.org, for details. Or check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.